Hey friends, today I'll be walking through a build that has carried me through countless Grandmaster Nightfall runs and other extremely difficult endgame activities. The best part is that Xur is selling the key to this build right now in the EDZ. We will of course be breaking down Ursa Furiosa and making a build that can take it into all things PvE. So no matter if you're already a Gilded Conqueror or just looking to dip your toes into harder content, you can already be farming Ascendant Shards and Prisms with ease. Ursa Furiosa enhances the Void's Titan Sentinel Shield Super, which, while guarding with the heavy attack button or the sword guard button, you block all incoming damage ahead of you, creating orbs of power and providing a massive 40% damage buff to your allies. With this exotic, you are the protector of the team. If there's too many enemies to handle, you're the barrier protecting your allies from being overwhelmed. If your ally's down in a bad spot, you can charge ahead and create a refuge to revive them. And with every shot that you take for them, you generate orbs of power so that they get stronger. Ursa's exotic perk, Ursine Guard, adds a little extra to the pot by refunding your super energy based on how much damage you block. In harder content like a GM, you'll be blocking more than enough damage to get the full refund of 50%. And despite the fact that the refund is capped at 50% super energy, with this build we can get the other half in no time so we can get back to supporting our allies. We'll be using two specific fragments of the Void subclass that can help us generate more super energy. The first fragment is the most straightforward. Echo of Reprisal gives us super energy when we get kills while near 3 or more enemies. The second fragment, Echo of Harvest, creates orbs of power after precision kills on weakened enemies. And Titan's only way to weaken enemies is with the fragment, Echo of Undermining, which causes our Void grenades to weaken on hit. For this, equipping the Vortex grenade is a good choice here. Because of its wide area of effect, there are more opportunities to get precision kills to create those orbs of power. Also, it doesn't do a lot of damage, so our risk of accidentally killing our enemies with the grenade isn't as high as some of the other options. Remember, we're weakening them with the grenade so that we can create those orbs of powers with Echo of Harvest by getting a precision kill. In harder content, enemies have more health. This makes suppressor grenades a better choice, because enemies hit by our grenades will be weakened by Echo of Undermining, and they'll also be suppressed, and the less the enemies are shooting at our friends, the better. Suppressor grenades also have the added benefit of shutting down Hive Guardians, which can really be a lifesaver in harder content where their abilities can easily one-shot your fire team. This Echo of Harvest loop of weakening enemies and then getting a precision kill is not a necessary part of the build, but it does add a nice reward to a higher skill ceiling. Because of the strong reliance on grenades, we'll be looking to get them back as quickly as possible. There are a few combinations of aspects that can help us with that. Offensive Bulwark gives us a 400% faster grenade generation while we have an overshield, and Bastion gives us an overshield every time that we use our class ability. Bastion is really nice, but it halves our ability regen to our class ability, and so for that reason we want to spec our stats into Resilience. Getting Resilience to 100 will bring our base barricade cooldown back down to about 46 seconds. We don't worry about many of the other stats because our basic gameplay loop includes casting our barricade as often as possible, as we can get our overshield, which gives us our grenade energy. This build so far is a good start for many, but there are many common mods that can enhance our gameplay loop. Harmonic Siphon generates orbs of power on Void weapon multi-kills. Combine that with a Void weapon with Thresh for super energy or Demolitionist for grenade energy, and you can get a nice rhythm. With Echo of Reprisal, we want to focus on killing while surrounded by enemies, but that can be dangerous, especially in a GM. And since Bastion gives us an overshield, we can use our class ability to protect us while we're surrounded. And we can use some additional armor mods to take advantage of this situation. For instance, Dynamo on our class item and Distribution on our helmet combined will give us about 5% super energy every time that we put up a shield near enemies. Then we can use Perpetuation or Bomber on your class item depending on its elemental affinity. Then to get even more use of our orbs of power, we can use Insulation, Enervation, or Absolution to get even more ability energy when we pick them up. And finally, on our chest piece, you'll want to match your damage resistance mods to the activity, but more on that in a future video. Next, we'll look at combat style mods. This build is already good enough to take into even the hardest PvE content in the game, but we can add some additional mods to make our lives even easier. Because the focus of this build is around our barricade and grenade abilities, we want to make elemental wells, since picking them up will give us a little bump of our ability energy. Reaping Wellmaker will make our next kill after using our barricade spawn a Void elemental well. And elemental armaments cause our void weapons to periodically create a void elemental well, giving us 2 different ways to generate wells. These void elemental wells we pick up can give us 6 seconds of 40% increased damage resistance if we use the mod Well of Tenacity. And throw on Well of Utility to give us an additional 10% to our class energy for quicker overshields. Finally, Font of Wisdom temporarily gives us 100 intellect for 30 seconds, and is particularly helpful if you don't want to invest heavily into intellect. As for how to play with this build, you want to use your shield near enemies to generate our 5% super energy and get a little class energy back. Then weaken enemies with our grenade, and now because we just cast our class ability, our next void kill will generate a void elemental well, and if it's a precision kill, it will also generate an orb of power. 2 if we get a multi-kill. Picking up the elemental wells gives us increased super regen for 30 seconds, 40% damage resistance, and 20% of our class ability back. And those orbs of power are giving us about 2.5% super and more class ability energy. Repeat until we get our super, cast it for our allies, and then the next time we'll only have to build up half as much. I hope that this build helps you out, and if you're new, gives you the confidence to try out harder content. Remember, if you don't have all these mods, visit Banshee and Ada in the Tower daily. You can find the dim link to the build in the comments below. Subscribe for more builds to inspire you on your build crafting journey.